Okay, so we're going to trace off our pattern. Just show you underneath. So this is my original pattern draft, and you could just use a piece of tracing paper or, you know, any kind of transparent paper. I've got some baking paper here, and you're just gonna stick it in place. Make sure it's sitting super flat. So I'm gonna do this in marker just so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I'm just gonna trace all around the outside, so the outline. So I'm starting at my center front, and I find it easier as well sometimes just to extend some of these lines. I think it gives me more accurate corners because I can use my ruler to get a right angle. So here, for example, if I line this up in the corner, I draw a straight line, I know that that's going to give me exactly a 90-degree angle right there. So I've got a bit of a curve here, so I'm just going to use my curve tool to replicate that. And then side seam. Right here I've got my armhole. Don't forget to transfer your notches as well. You want to keep them at the same angle. Shoulder, and then start my neckline. You can just keep rotating the curve tool until you get the right angle. And if you do struggle, if you feel like you can't quite get it right, you know, you can even just really gently draw it in by hand. I only really recommend that on smaller pieces, smaller lines. You don't want to kind of draw too much by hand. Okay, so now I just need to draw in my new dart. So I'm done. So right here, these are the openings of the dart. Now I don't want to have my dart legs, I don't want them to reach all the way to the bottom, to the boss point. A bit like we did with the skirt darts, we basically raised the apex. We did it by ½ an inch. So when we're working on bodices and we're working around the bust dart, we basically want to bring it up 5/8 of an inch. So what you do is take your ruler and just measure 5/8 from that original bust point, and then you're just going to do a little dot, and it needs to be in the center of these two dart legs, right in the middle. So this is now the new dart point. Okay, you're not going to add in a punch mark, we're just going to keep this as our new dart point, and we're going to add seam allowance to this as well. And this basically tells the seamstress or whoever's sewing your piece, and they're going to sew a little bit past this point. Okay, so now what we can do is add in seam allowance. So I'm going to use a red pen so you can see this clearly. So this is my center front. So I'm not going to put any seam allowance on my center front because I would cut that on the fold, because I don't have any seams on the front and I just want a nice clean front piece. So I'm going to add seam allowance to the waist, side seam, armhole, shoulder, the neckline, but it's going to be slightly smaller to allow for a facing, and then also inside my dart. So I'm going to start right at the bottom at the waist. So I like to just do a little series of dashes and then join them up. You can obviously take your time and do this, and you will be using a pen, so you shouldn't have any smudge marks. 1/2 inch side seam, and I'm just going to do the same on the shoulder, sorry, armhole, just a few little dashes. And then I can use my curve tool just to join them up. And then I'm going to just bring that notch out. You can see how I'm just mirroring, so keeping the line parallel, the same direction. So 1/2 inch on the shoulder. Remember, I'm working in full scale, so this might be different depending on if you're working on half scale or quarter scale. Okay, so I've just squared this off because right here I'm going to have a different seam allowance. It's going to be smaller. It's going to be 1/4 inch now because this is the start of my neckline, and I need a smaller seam allowance here because I'm going to attach facing. Okay, and just smooth that off. And I'm going to do the same on this side. And then for the dart itself, you'll see that I'm adding a seam allowance to the dart legs instead of keeping this space. So, you know, before we basically drew in, you know, the top of the dart, and we would keep that. Whereas now, when it's such a large dart, you know, it makes much more sense just to add seam allowance and cut it out. So the way you would do that, just like any other seam, I'm just going to add seam allowance. So I'm going to do 1/2 inch, so the same as, you know, side seams. I'm just going to bring that line down. And on the other side. Here, so you can see where they intersect. So that's where I basically cut down to. And then I'm just going to square off here to just finish off, line it up, square across. And the same here as well. So I'm just lining this line up here to the edge of my seam allowance so that I can get a nice square line, like so. Okay. So it doesn't matter about these extra lines here, because when I cut around and, you know, cut out my final pattern piece, these obviously aren't going to be in place anymore. So all of my seam allowance is now added, so I can just do this to show you. I've got my new dart point located. So remember, you always need to bring it up by 5/8. So I'm just going to do this to show you. This is all my seam allowance right here. So what we'll do now is just quickly cut this out. can obviously add labels to your centre front and grain line. So you could write front bodice piece, size 8, cut 1, self on fold, if you don't want to seam. And then your initials. In around my seam allowance. Almost there. So now you can see we don't have any, if I was going to cut this out on fabric, I've saved myself a good amount of bulk. You know, if I was going to have to trim that down anyway, I've saved myself a step. So what I'll do is let's just fold that dart in place. So obviously if I was going to sew these 2 lines here with meat, so let's just fold this in place. The shape is starting to emerge. Let's put some tape on that. Just want to give you a visual reference. Tape doesn't stick very well to baking paper, which is what I've used to trace. So, just a heads up. Okay, so now if I fold this back and imagine that it was stitched in place, you can see the new shape revealed. And obviously now my neckline is complete. So I've got a full rounded neckline and my dart's been moved from the bottom of my waist up to the middle of the neck.